Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Cecilia, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from Barksdale Resources. Please note you can submit questions in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Rick Trotman, President and CEO of Barksdale Resources, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol BRKCF and on the TSXV under the symbol BRO. Welcome, Rick.
Hi, Cecilia. Thanks for having me on. And warm hello to all of the viewers watching today's presentation. I'm very happy to be presenting our corporate update for Barksdale Resources. Again, we trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange under the symbol BRO and on the OTCQX as BRKCF. If you have any questions for either myself or anyone else in the company following this presentation, please make sure you head to our website. The address is on the front of the presentation, and you can set yourself up with a meeting with either Terry Ann Wellicke, our VP of Communications, or myself directly. All right. Well, Barksdale, for those that do not know, is a base metal exploration company focused on a very exciting project, and even larger than that, a very exciting district within southern Arizona. We have been actively drilling here for a couple of months now, and it is a very interesting process that I will be talking about here shortly. As far as this presentation is concerned, I will be making some forward-looking statements, talking about the future and things of that nature. Please do your homework. Please look into any and all companies before making investments. You can see this in more detail on our website. So our projects. Our projects are focused in the desert Southwest. So our main project is the Patagonia District in southern Arizona. This is anchored by our Sunnyside project. It's a clustered porphyry project with an associated carbonate replacement style deposit. It is a very prolific district. It has enormous potential. It has a world-class carbonate replacement deposit. And we are currently drilling to see exactly how much of that world-class asset extends onto our property. The other asset that we have is the San Javier Copper Gold Project in Sonora, Mexico. It's a short drive away from the Sunnyside project, kind of clustered within this Sonora desert area. And this is a copper oxide style project, a heap leach style resource that we have advanced to kind of the pre-development style phase. And I'll talk about that here in just a bit. So as far as the company is concerned, we have a very strong corporate register anchored by some very large companies, private investors, etc. Tech Resources is one of the largest shareholders in the company, as well as Crescat Capital, Cisco Development Corp, U.S. global investors out of Texas, and a smattering of other funds and high net worth folks across Canada, the United States, and Europe. We have a very strong shareholder base that, for the most part, has been in the story for quite some time. They're very excited about the projects that we have, the exploration potential that those projects possess, and what ultimately we can unlock as far as value for the company once this exploration is played out. The shares outstanding here are a bit out of date. We just closed a financing in the middle of January. So the shares outstanding, I believe, is 91 million instead of 81 million. Share price is also down a bit. I think it's approximately 35 cents. And so some of these numbers, appears we probably have the wrong presentation in here. So please check back with our corporate website to get a more fulsome, updated copy of this capital structure. Share price performance, again, this is a dated chart here. It looks like we have the wrong slide deck. Our current price is around 35 cents. We did a financing, as I mentioned, that closed in mid-January. That was a 40-cent unit offering. It was very well received. It was about $4 million of gross proceeds, approximately 3.6 net of all fees, legals, et cetera, et cetera. So we're sitting around 35 cents with our shareholders eagerly awaiting drill results from the project that we're currently drilling. We do have research coverage by Cormark Securities, Stefan Iano. He covers us. He has a target price of $1.25 per share. So before we get into the project itself, we'll spend a minute talking about the management team here, the board of directors. The board of directors is chaired by Darren Blasutti. He is the long-term vice president of corporate development for Barrick Gold. He spent a number of years there and completed probably $30 billion plus of M&A within the mining space. As well as Butch Wolftang. He is our technical expert on the board. I worked with Butch back at Yamana Gold and Meridian Gold 20 years ago. And those folks complement the management team that we have that has a lot of experience in both the exploration and development phases of the extractive industries. I myself am a geologist by background. I did a stint as an equity research analyst in New York City, as well as a stint in private equity with resource capital funds out of Denver. So I've been investing in the mining markets for quite some time and have enough technical expertise to be a bit dangerous. All right, so here's the good stuff. This is what everyone's obviously here to obtain more information. Here are the two areas that we are focused on. The one in the center of the page, the Patagonia District, this is our anchor project. It's a collection of properties within the Patagonia Mining District. We currently have drill active on the project. This comes after a 5-year stint of permitting on the project that has allowed us to get going. You'll notice that the San Javier project, located in Sonora, Mexico, is on the bottom right-hand side of this slide. The project's about 5-hour drive away from the Patagonia District and about 2 hours away from the capital city of Hermosillo in Mexico. So it's very logistic. Both projects are very well positioned logistically, and both are very easy to access. This is the Patagonia District in southern Arizona. You'll notice the white line across the bottom of the slide. That is the border with Mexico. Just for reference, the dark blue projects are the properties that we control, and the light gray areas are the properties controlled by South 32, which is a multi-billion-dollar diversified mining company out of Australia. They acquired these properties via the acquisition of Arizona Mining in 2018. This was a nearly $2 billion transaction. They had already owned a fair chunk of the company when they made this acquisition. And the reason that they did so was that in the corner of our Sunnyside project, which is right there in the middle, and the edge of their Hermosa project, Arizona Mining had made quite the discovery of a world-class, extremely significant lead zinc silver asset called the Taylor deposit. And if we zoom in onto the Sunnyside property, which again is in the dark blue, you'll see the projection of that Taylor deposit in the dark gray kind of print just off to the right-hand side of our property. Now that's the ore body kind of projected to surface, so it kind of just shows you the outline of it. But one of the key features that you'll note is that it comes right up against the property boundary. In reality, that's not how ore deposits behave. They don't know the bounds of personal property or corporate property. And so, as you'll note, there are a couple of black dots and lines on the slide. Those are historic drill holes from the 1980s that show that deposit keeps on going onto our side of the fence. The drill results are on the bottom left-hand side of the slide. You'll see some pretty impressive intercepts within kind of carbonate replacement style and or skarn mineralization, such as 17 meters of 17% lead zinc, 1.3% copper, and over 10 ounces per ton silver. This is quite impressive. This is just as good as the high-grade component of the neighboring Taylor deposit, which, again, I'll remind everyone is a world-class asset. It's about 150 million tons, grading roughly 7% combined lead and zinc, and a little over 2 ounces per ton silver. So in any case, you'll note that the drill results that we have from the historic drilling, far exceed the average grades of the Taylor deposit. So that's very promising. To us, it suggests that the heat source to this entire district is likely the Sunnyside porphyry, which you'll note there in that kind of orangish yellow blob in the center of the Sunnyside property. And our hypothesis is that as you get closer to that porphyry, you not only increase the amount of heat, obviously associated with the placement of that porphyry into the rocks, but also the additional fluid flow coming off of that porphyry. And that's really what caused the mineralization to form that extends, all the way up to kind of 3-4 kilometers away to the east. So the gap, if you will, between the porphyry and the edge of the property boundary, that's where we think we have the most and best opportunity to find high-grade resources, kind of akin to what has been seen in some of the historic drill results. So if I cut a section, mostly east-west, through the deposits, this is what it looks like. It's a bit of a cartoon, but if you'll allow me to walk you through it, the center of the page has a thin blue line that's vertical. That's the property boundary that separates Barksdale's asset to the left and South 32's assets to the right. As you'll note, there's a big blue blob on the left-hand side. That's the Sunnyside porphyry, as we currently understand it. It has about 6 historic holes that go into the deeper portions and define the outline. And then you'll notice the historic holes, the TCH2 and 2A holes that intersect the carbonate replacement deposits, which are in the red forms, that extend from surface a couple of kilometers off to the east, down onto our property, coming closer towards that porphyry on the west. So this gap zone between the porphyry and the property boundary, that's the fertile ground in which we're currently drilling. We have holes that are going in and around the areas of the historic drilling to get additional pierce points into the geology to kind of corroborate our expected geologic model, and to obviously kind of find ore and allow us to chase ore further afield. Now, if I move the slide forward, this is quite a substantial area. We're talking about not only kind of a kilometer scale east-west, but that area of carbonates potentially wraps its way to the north around the porphyry and potentially to the south. So that gives us several square kilometers of potential to extend the amount of mineralization that we're seeing over on the South 32 side onto our ground. One thing that I'll note is that these ore bodies themselves, they tend to be the highest grade and cluster around structures, kind of fluid channeling structures that intersect the right types of rocks, these carbonate rocks at depth. And that's what we're really looking for. That's where the grades will be the highest, and that's where you see kind of the blowouts and mineralization that then kind of bleed off into the stratigraphy, into the kind of strata bound or blanket style zones kind of outboard of the higher grades. So that's what we're looking for. So if I go back to a plan view, this red outline here in the center of the page, that's the edge of the porphyry as we currently know it. From October, we have drilled 3 holes into the property. The first one was centered. You can see the little red dot kind of in the center of the page in the orange dashed area called the boundary zone. That was the first hole that we had. It was a wedge off of the historic hole. We ended up losing that in a big cavern, kind of a dissolution cavern where kind of mineralizing fluids are thought to have eaten away the carbonates. We lost that hole, started another hole in the same location. We've just finished that hole and are collaring a new wedge that's going off to the southeast from that hole. We also drilled a hole in this southern zone, the South Canyon zone in green. That hole has been completed. It went to about 1,800 meters. We wanted to intersect the stratigraphy dipping away from the Peak prospect, which is a copper-bearing skarn, kind of a newer discovery on the South 32 ground, shown in that green kind of circled area. We ended up going into a dike. There's a press release out on this. We went into kind of an intrusive body where we expected to hit the carbonate. It was a bit unfortunate we didn't get into the carbonate. We expect the carbonate to be very close, and we need to wedge off of that hole to kind of pop into the carbonate units in and around that area. There are South 32 holes just a couple hundred meters off to the east that give us great information on where that carbonate unit sits. So it's just a matter of doing some wedges off of there to kind of pop into it and out of that intrusive body. On the boundary zone where we have been drilling, we've encountered the carbonate units at depth in Zone 3. We'll have an update on that hole next week that we plan to put out. So I can't go into too much detail about what we're seeing in that hole. You'll have to stay tuned and look at our press release that will come out next week. But from a geologic standpoint, we intersected the carbonates where we projected them to be and went through the units that we expected to be there. I can't talk about mineralization. You can check that out in a couple of days once we have that release out to market. But we're very encouraged as to what we're seeing, and the next hole that we are wedging off, Sun 4, is planned to follow up and hopefully give us something just as good, if not better. This is a slide showing what we expected to encounter in Sun 2. This didn't play out exactly how we thought. We ended up going into an intrusive body just where the target 1 is forecast to be, and that extended to the bottom of the hole. We did encounter several copper zones within this area, including a nice kind of chalcocite zone up in the shallow areas, as well as a very broad zone of copper mineralization kind of in that dike at depth, kind of 150 meters of 0.1 copper, with some higher grade sections within there. So it was by no means a bust, but it didn't encounter the CRD mineralization that we wanted to hit in those carbonate units. So again, we will do some wedging off of this kind of mother hole here in the future that will allow us to kind of get into that carbonate stratigraphy where the host mineralization should lie. This is a photo for those that are unfamiliar with the project, kind of giving you an aerial view of what it looked like back in 2018 when we first kind of got active in this district. This white stippled area is the Sunnyside project, which is controlled by Barksdale. You can see some of the historic intercepts, the location of the drill hole collars off on the right. And you'll see the kind of early earthworks that were being completed on the Hermosa project next door. The little white dot at the bottom of the slide gives you the location of the next photo, which just is aimed at giving you an indication as to what's going on the project next door and the importance of it. So over the past 5 years, South 32 has spent hundreds of millions of dollars aggressively advancing their project from a PEA level, where they bought it at $2 billion valuation, to the point where they are currently sinking 2 shafts just around the corner from this hill that you see on the right-hand side of the slide. They do have 2 underground portals just off to the left beyond that white kind of dome-shaped structure, as well as a tailings facility that's already in place. They are forecasting initial production here in 3 years in 2027, and they're expected to provide a construction decision from their board of directors in the March quarter of this year. That's the update that came out last week during their half annual earnings call. So last known number on this project was $1.7 billion on the capital side. It would be a 10,000 ton per day operation, so very significant, very impactful from a global standpoint. There's also a manganese component to the upper portion of the ore body, which they're looking to process in a separate development to create electrolytic manganese for battery operations. So this is getting permitted, at least on the non-private ground, as a battery development project, which is being kind of fast-tracked, quote unquote, by the U.S. government. So all of these things are very wonderful when you're working in a district, especially when the major mining company next door is spending money aggressively and pushing their assets, closer and closer to development. This all happening while we're exploring and putting our first holes into an asset that deserves a ton of drilling. So we're very excited. We can't wait to see what the kind of drilling will yield over the rest of this year. We're very excited to kind of bring things out to market with you as they unfold. So if you have any additional questions or would like to sign up to our email distribution list, please head to our resource or to our website. It's barksdaleresources.com. Again, you can sign yourself up for meetings with management, either Terry Ann Wellicke or myself. Just a final note, we do trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange under the symbol BRO, as well as in the OTCQX under the symbol BRKCF. Thank you very much for your time. That's all of the kind of prepared notes that I have, and I see that there's a bunch of questions here, so give me 1 second to kind of go through this, and I will start answering questions. Okay, first question is, what were the key takeaways from the final assay results from Sun 2? Yeah, that's a great question. So Sun 2, if I go back onto this slide, is the hole that you can see kind of mid-page down from center in that green zone called the South Canyon Zone. We encountered the final assays on that were a shallow supergene, well, potentially supergene and or hypogene. We're still waiting on a mineralogical study to come back to tell us which actual mineral we are seeing in there, whether it's chalcocite or durgellite. But nevertheless, this is kind of a chalcocite zone, 27 meters of 0.33 copper with a great silver component that actually extend kind of over the entire porphyry and diatreme zone. So there's a very large diatreme that is not shown in this picture, but kind of a circular feature. Think of it as a kind of a volcano that blew its top back in the day. And all the sediment kind of fell back into it. That zone has shown itself to be quite aerially extensive, several square kilometers. There's lots of historic drill holes that it went through that zone, so it's turning out to be quite big. It's several kilometers square and up to kind of 150 meters thick. So I assume that there's going to be quite a substantial amount of copper and silver in that zone. But the importance of it is that it's showing you that this is a huge mineral system. It's probably also showing you that it's kind of a clustered porphyry system. I bet you there's more than, Sunnyside porphyry itself is probably not one porphyry. It's probably kind of a nested series of porphyries that were long-lived, or at least the intrusion of multiple porphyries was long-lived, which allowed lots and lots of metal to flow into the system. So that's the key takeaway from that. The shallow chalcocite zone won't be a target for us, other than the fact that we'll be able to get additional intercepts through it while drilling the deeper targets. So it's kind of a situation where we get a 2-for-1, if you will, when we drill. Let me get to the next question here. Am I correct? Are you currently drilling a daughter hole of Sun 3? If so, how many meters have you drilled? Yes, we are currently in the process of wedging off of Sun 3. It's something that takes a bit of time. It's a bit of a process to set a wedge, drill off, and then motor away from the old hole. So we're currently in that. We'll have a more fulsome update next week when we put out the update on the Sun 3 hole itself. But that wedging process is we're in the throes of it right now. So I'll have more of an update for you next week on that. Let's see here. Next question was, did you see some barbecue rocks in Sun 2? For those that don't know, barbecue rocks are kind of a descriptive term for carbonate rocks that have been highly altered by fluids, and when you put them under black lights, they fluoresce different colors. And usually carbonates kind of fluoresce cooler colors, but once you start altering them with fluids associated with some of these porphyry style mineralization, they start to turn colors that are more they're warmer colors, so more akin to kind of barbecue flames, so to speak. So oranges and reds and things of that nature. In Sun 2, we were in the intrusive rocks. So there's not a lot of carbonate in those rocks. They didn't fluoresce as they, say a carbonate rock would. So it's not as good of a detection within the intrusive rocks. Let's see here. Next question. If wedging is done from Sun 2 in South Canyon, what direction shall be the wedge? That's a great question. Our current thinking is that the wedge would most likely go to the northeast. So that hole is vertical. There's not a lot of room between it and the property boundary to the south. And so a hole to the northeast is our most kind of likely candidate to be drilled next as far as Sun 2 is concerned. And it might be more east-northeast, but nevertheless in that kind of in that direction. Next question is the recent share price action due to drill results? Yeah, I would say so. Look, our price was obviously affected by the financing that we did, or that we launched in mid-December and closed in mid-January. That was a strong factor in there. We gave a discount on the price to incentivize folks to invest in that financing. And obviously, folks expected us to kind of hit the grand slam with the first hole Sun 1, which we lost in that cave. So, I think some of the, let's call it faster money, was certainly expecting us to kind of hit that home run with the first drill hole. And it didn't happen. Mother Nature didn't play ball with us, so to speak, on that first hole. We unfortunately lost in the dissolution cavern. The positives of that were that the fluid flow was super high in that area, and that was a mega void, so to speak, which means that tons of fluids were pumping through there. So we were on the right track in my mind. But the market doesn't view it that way. They view it as kind of a miss, and that it's going to take longer to get results. So we definitely paid the price for that. But the opportunity here is that we have gotten down through that area. Sun 3 had no void. We didn't lose circulation. We didn't go through any caverns at that contact between volcanics and the limestone. So from an execution standpoint, we are getting to where we need to go, and we are, we have Sun 3 and now Sun 4 underway. So we have great opportunities here to kind of meet those objectives that shareholders have. So I think the potential here is still unchanged from what I've been talking about for years, and I'm still very excited to get these next holes in. I think it's going to be kind of a fantastic next couple of months here as we learn more about this and get more holes into the correct zones. So nothing but excitement here for us, and we really look forward to talking to you guys again here soon once we have some of these updates out to market and the new drill hole down to where it's supposed to go. So thank you for your time. I am out of it, and we'll catch